So to go into it, I'm going to share screen, some slides I've created, but it's all about the tools. Trinidad and Tobago and a lot of countries in our region. Firstly, welcome to our national and regional community here following this. But Trinidad and Tobago and a lot of the countries have put in place a lot of legislation. So a lot of legislative tools. In fact, in the last year and a half, we've acceded to the Rome Convention, the Madrid Protocol, the Beijing Treaty, the Marrakesh Treaty, and others. And also we've developed more tools to help creators and innovators, the SME class, etc., to maximize their benefits from IP rights. So the important thing here really is to look at the tools of licensing, franchising, merchandising, to uplift your IP, to ring fence it, and then commercialize it. And then after that, what are the support services that the regulators like ourselves have working with WIPO and their academy, one of the main partners for this, together with others here today, the very important Carnival and Quantum Business Solutions, to help you to maximize your returns. One of the important new advances is the National IP Training Center. I was thank the host for the time to allow us to introduce it. It is one of just 12 centers in the world and the second in the Caribbean after Dominican Republic. And it will be a very important tool, teaching tool with over 28 trainers, 10 from the IP office and over 12 from the private sector, some from the universities who underwent 2 years of training. And you would have seen our release on the National IP Training Center. So the expertise that we're building through this IP Training Center will result in certain courses across the line, including new and emerging areas that Dr. Gudamu spoke about, such as today's session, to help us to uplift and grow the IP sector in Trinidad and Tobago. So this is a slide from some of the training that was opened by Professor Brian Copeland, and Joe Bradley is on screen from the World Intellectual Property Office. Intellectual property, as Andres went in, refers to the expressed creations of the mind. This is one of our staff's creations and is currently the mascot of the IPO. And I put on screen the types of IP so you would see. So today we are focusing on the branding, the inventions, some bits of industrial design, which protects the ornamental aspect, the branding, protecting your corporate name, etc. And looking at how you can maximize that besides copyright and neighboring rights, which protects original literary, dramatic, and artistic works. So what does intellectual property do? Well, it gives you very important types of rights. The economic rights, we like to call it the rights of communication, adaptation, reproduction, and distribution of your work. And also the right to recognize as the creator of that work, which is the moral rights. And what I am focusing on, it would be the transferring, the licensing, the saying how economic rights can be exploited. My colleagues in 10 minutes will focus on the types of IP rights. So these rights, as I've said, you can sell your IP, you can license it, including your creative products, which is the purpose of today's sessions, by way of franchising and merchandising, joint ventures. Andrew spoke about contracts. Contracts are critical. One of your best weapons in IP exploitation is to have an intellectual property lawyer at your side to go through and navigate all of these pitfalls, because IP is a rabbit hole. There's so many different types of intellectual property. So knowing and being advised on the best types for your particular situation is critical. And if you get this right, then you will improve your revenue. In fact, you will improve competitive advantage. I remember 20 years ago as a young lawyer, everybody wanted to have the BlackBerry phone, right? That was in style at the time. Then, of course, Steve Jobs came with the iPhone. And so really the purpose of IP, while protecting the IP, is also to move with the times. So the discussion earlier about the laws catching up to the new areas, I was happy to hear about the perspective that we do have laws. Definitely there are things in place, contracts and other things that are very important to help you fully exploit the IP assets to extend your brand and image. You know, a great example was Mario Sabga, you know, when he was trying to come up with his brand of coffee for his store. You know, it was said that coffee wasn't popular in the Caribbean. And he went to his wife, like many of us, for inspiration, and she asked him, well, what does coffee mean to you? And he said, it's my ritual. As simple as that, a great brand was born, and it's been exploited, and IP exploitation is a good term. It's been licensed, and the rituals is all over Trinidad and Tobago and the Caribbean. And why is this so important? Because of the link to the orange economy. Regulators, policyholders are giving more attention to the orange economy, core in advancing the cultural and creative goods and services, and performing games, gaming, fashion, music, etc. This is contributing to the growth of the IP economy. 34.8% of the creative entrepreneurs in Latin America from the Orange Economy study have indicated here that they pursue their intellectual property, saying it's expensive or they do not know the procedure. This is an important part. We as regulators, we as policyholders have to demystify intellectual property. And the IP office has done a lot of that. All our services are now online, as my colleagues will talk about. And also all our tools online and available. So the importance for the region is to try to look at this and see how intellectual property can be made more user-friendly for the important persons who have to use, creators, the SMEs, etc. When you look at the last data that we had on IP and the orange economy, on our contributions of copyright-based industries, the contribution to Trinidad and Tobago's economy was around 4.8%. At the time, I think it was about $7 billion. Unemployment at 5%. Even with the pandemic, where there have been issues with performance rights, etc., we are a very resilient region, and we're going to come out of the pandemic and be very stronger. And these are the sectors that, as policymakers, we are going to have to put emphasis on. From Dr. Vaness's James study that I've put on this, you could see that in 2000, copyright contributed approximately 1.998 billion to the economy, as much as 3 times as the agricultural sector, 626 million, and 2.8 times just the hotel and guest houses sector. So it is growing, it's very resilient, and it's something that we really have to put emphasis on. So in terms of the tools, as I'm focusing on certain types of rights, I've just pulled a couple of rights to deal with inventions, novelty. To get a patent, it's the exclusive right granted by the state to an individual for his or her invention. It must be not easily reproduced, and it must work, right? So what are the potential aspects in relation to the Carnival industry? Taken from the IPO's handbook, I just leave some of these here to look. The steel pan evolution, new types of pan. Let's explore that. These are 2 types of steel pans. 5-pan, the percussive harmonic instrument that was invented by the team at UE, led more than a decade in taking this. Keith Menard, Professor Copeland, Earl Phillips, Russell Byron. And what is it? It's akin to an electronic synthesizer with a circular shape to lend more versatility when compared with the linear structure of the conventional synthesizer. We are looking forward to the licensing of this and exploitation of its use in different markets as the patent still has life. And very importantly, the Genesis pan that is owned by Corporation Soul, and a plan for the remainder of the years with the Genesis pan of the patent for it to be properly licensed in different markets. And if it's done, and this is what some of these topics are, then you can see royalties coming back to Trinidad and Tobago, foreign direct investment, etc. This is what it's about. Similarly, merchandising in Carnival. I'm just borrowing here from the Samba schools in Rio's Carnival. As you can see on the screen here, they have licensed tremendous merchandise for their Carnival logos, as you can see with Tijuca. And the Samba schools perform at the Samba Drome, which is also ring-fenced, as Rio's Carnival is, in terms of broadcasting rights and these things. So the merchandising underpinning it is trademarks, designs, artwork, all of these things. And then, of course, it's backed up television rights, film. You have it on toys. You imagine a Peter Minshall's work on a bed sheet, on a lunch kit, how you start now to inculcate pride in our culture through merchandising. And what merchandising does, engaging brand visibility. It's a value marketing tool. There's market expression. It's relatively risk-free and a further revenue stream through royalties, etc. So these are some of the benefits here of merchandising on the screen for you. And, it's something definitely to be encouraged. I saw at the water park in Chagaramas, they're trying to bring some elements of folklore back into branding, such as the Papa Bois area, water slide, etc. So making us change our mindset to see our beautiful folklore, our brands, etc., being licensed out into the world is a very important part of what we're trying to achieve here as a country. And as you can see, I've broken down the type of important areas as a lawyer in a merchandising agreement. And you would see it there from one of our WIPO partners who presented on it out of Singapore. Another important area is, of course, for creators, SMEs, etc. So know the difference in these licensing agreements between licensing and assignment. Assignment is almost as if you sell your house. If I sell my house, I can't go back there next week and enter. The new owner could throw me out. So assignments are basically is all of the rights being given to the new owner of it. And therefore, you can freely change, adapt, and dispose, you can reassign and license, etc. Whereas think of a license as more as if you rent your house. You would still have rights to go in there under certain circumstances, right? So these are the important distinctions that one must know in terms of licensing and assignments. So going into it, a license is a contract for explicit rights to use IP. It may or may not comprise exclusivity. And I've put here the types of licensing in the creative sector. For instance, a mechanical license grants the right to reproduce and distribute a specific composition at an agreed fee. A synchronization license, when I think synchronization, I'm thinking Naveed, my good friend, I hope he's on, who is the fantastic score for the Ansa Makal Awards, the Nobel laureates. That score carried that and really brought it alive, Naveed, I must say. So the license for that, syncing, through synchronization, commonly used by music publishers who issue licenses or copyright owners. Usually a producer grant right to synchronize the musical composition. Then there are broadcasting and online licenses that grant permission to use a portion of the radio frequency spectrum given in a geographical area. And of course, a business arrangement is one in which a company gives another company permission to manufacture its product for a specified payment. These are some of the licensing issues to note as we touch very briefly in the time that I have. They're all on screen. I've put it here, plus clickable links for you in terms of the importance of licensing issues. Identify the parties, decide on assignability of license and sublicensing, identify the product covered by the license of the type of IP and the deliverables, and determine the payment, whether it's one-off royalties that could come back. I gave the example of the Genesis plan that could potentially generate royalties for the country, etc. Determine the territories covered by the license and determine the term of the license. These are all very important points. In 2014, we spoke about this at Carnival and IPNCC, in which Regan Asgarali, who have quoted from here, appeared alongside Richard Atching and myself to go into these rabbit hole of licensing. And with some of the clauses that you looked at. Various clauses that are very important. How to really maximize your brand. That trademark, whether it's tribe, whether it's army. I remember being involved in the beginning of that, Mr. Sobian, and to see where it has flourished now is really amazing, where they're taking that the world. So, intellectual provides licensing benefits. I am a fan of licensing. It gives the ability to enter into all fields as well as your products into different geographic markets. And one of the important support services I will talk about to enable this will be the Madrid Protocol. Going back here, licensor creates a potential, could create a potential competitor. These are some of the risks. And then, of course, I'm looking at the risks from the licensee. But a very good, well-constructed license can navigate through the waters and see you to more of the benefit of it. Even in terms of broadcasting on the film side, you know, there are different types of licenses, set designs, musical, film, etc. Yes. So as I close in 5 minutes, I just wanted to go through and show you it's important for film. Look at your clearances for your property. You can't just go and film something for Carnival or on the road. You have to get permissions. You have to even look at bringing equipment in to make sure you liaise with the customs, to make sure the stock and these things are clear, right? And of course, the locations, very important for that. You know, even in photography, you have to make sure that you protect your photographs very carefully. There's the poor man's copyright. You can register post back to yourself. You now can use your phone as records. This is a very important case. The NATU's counsel on it between Sean Drakes, and his photograph was improperly used or communicated to the public. And he was able to succeed in this case and of the illegal reproduction of the photograph. So you're using the law, you're using the tools, you're using agreements. As you see, it's all here in the slide of different templates that I have provided for the viewing public to really give you that competitive advantage. And what's the end result? The end result could be something like Caroline Mackenzie's Netflix deal. It's all about licensing here and deals, where her book may be exploited on film by Netflix. There's an agreement that will allow it to be produced, and also there are different publishing rights, etc., that he has been able to sign on to in different places. So, for a couple minutes, franchising, one of my favorite areas. I'm showing you the Napa because there's so much potential for the Napa. The Napa could actually be seen in the future of a Broadway type franchise where Broadway productions are brought there, and as well as performances, etc. So what is the main thing I want to end with? Carnival. This thing, Carnival and culture. Well, it has been exhibiting franchise-like behavior for decades. And before Carnival was even considered as something modified, Dr. Sharon Legall looked at the economic viability of IP and said, you know, we are looking at the right track. And if I was to focus on something here, business format franchising, where the owner of the business licenses to another franchisee the right to use the business model. So this is where IP is wrapping into one here. Your brand, your know-how, your different ideas now in the form of a franchise. Juxtaposing that onto Carnival, looking at something like Carnival, the advantages of this global connection throughout the world, a franchising and licensing arrangement. Additional revenue stream. Think about Munich and all these years. I was in South Africa. They wanted every part of our Carnival there and speaking to multiple people. So we think beyond Trinidad and Tobago, looking at these advantages, making available business concepts, and then royalties coming back to grow demands. So these are some challenges that Sharon looked at. Technical expertise. Issue trademark protection. Well, you have to protect the brand. It's about time you look at protecting Soca Monarch, Chutney Soca Monarch. These will be discussed later on. Panorama, Dimanche Grand, our things, and bringing our unique thing. In fact, the Tobago Festivals Commission has just protected all of their festivals with the Intellectual Property Office, and that will be rolled out soon. So with Carnival, when you look at the professionalization of it, you're looking at, just look at Rio, where they've professionalized it by the Independent League of Samba Schools, and they're doing the merchandising, they're naming rights, there are arena rights. In fact, the biggest ads are premiered at the day of the Rio, just like Super Bowl that Mr. Mohammed and I so passionately follow, right? Where the biggest ads pay for that time, ads come out of the stand literally at you when you look at the Rio Carnival. Here's Globaliza's trademark, which became the global brand for Carnival. So professionalizing using stadia, not just the soccer room, the other stadia to really ring fence IP is where the IP and the Carnival could be going. Organizing obligations, licensing, different corporate sponsorships. This is the snapshot from Daniel's look at the construction of the Rio Carnival. And one of the most important tools is the Madrid Protocol. 126 countries of brand potential online through the IP office. And guess who was the first to use this? The first to use this was Derek Lewis's Carnicon. Here it is. The first ever local Madrid application for Europe, North America, taking the global Carnival convention to the world, looking at areas of licensing, merchandising, possibilities of franchising is there, as I've spoke about here, where this event will now be globalized, fenced and exploited throughout the world. There it is for everybody to see. The first ever filing through the Madrid Protocol made history last year. And what is this? It's keeping in with our tourism, Trinidad's thrust, our economic thrust, to take our culture out there, bring in foreign direct investment, as I said, contributing to the orange economy. So to end, go back to my team for the last 15 minutes of today's session. I just wanted to say the support services for the tools, the IP tools exist. There's the WIPO Mediation Center where you can actually enter into agreements to help you proactively to develop contracts. It's all online via the IP office. And there's mediation that can be done, domain name protection here. And it's the cheapest fees in the Western Hemisphere. You could see the fees. So our creators and SMEs can use these services to assist them. And others on the IPO's website includes online filing, online IP diagnostics. It gives you the health of your business, etc. And everything is on the website. So as I end, to my distinguished colleagues, points to remember: exploit your IP, ring fence it, list it. Have a good IP lawyer or a knowledgeable IP consultant. I see one on the screen there, Mr. Mohammed, who has experience, guide you along these ways. Maximize your IPRs by creating and signing agreements. Explore further the cultural opportunities. It's there. Use it, ring fence it, protect it. The tools are there to use. Thank you very much. Back over to you.